music sounded so good like this. Fabulous. Time to show, it's your time. You're nominated as the greatest, and your flow and blow minds. Radio done rated, somehow dated. The friends you know, you won't find. True life stages, gotta count the pages.
Good day and welcome to the Washington Report. I'm Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, and I'm blessed to serve as the Virgin Islands delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives. The Washington Report was created to inform Virgin Islanders on current federal issues that directly affect the community. The show's guests range from political leaders to community activists. This show is all about getting information to you. Therefore, I really encourage you to email your questions to askstacey@mail.house.gov to have them answered on future shows. Now, I'd like to introduce my guest today. I have a freshman Congresswoman, Sheila Sherfilis McCormick. Congresswoman McCormick was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in January 2022. This was a special election to fill a seat after the death of our esteemed Alcee Hastings, former judge, congressman, and senior member of the Rules Committee. Now, of course, you know, I love this woman because she was born in Brooklyn. You guys all know how I feel about Brooklyn, New York, to parents from Haiti, and raised in Queens, New York, and then moved to Florida at the age of 13 to attend high school. She's the first Haitian American Democrat to be elected to Congress, and she now proudly represents Florida's 20th district. Congresswoman McCormick earned her bachelor's degree from Howard University and her Juris Doctorate from St. Thomas University. And before she was elected, she served as a project manager for New York City Transit Authority. And from 1999 to 2007, she worked as vice president for operations of Trinity Healthcare Services and later served as CEO. While in office, she intends to tackle rising unemployment rates, the soaring cost of living, inadequate access to quality health care, and lack of equitable opportunities. These are strong ideas and, of course, ones that we all share. As a Haitian American woman in Congress, representing one of the largest Haitian communities in the United States, she has vowed to give them the voice that they need. Representative Sherfilis McCormick serves on the House Committee on Education and Labor, as well as the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. She's also a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Haitian Caucus, and the Caribbean Caucus. She is married to Corley McCormick, and she's the proud mother of 2. So it's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. You know, I mentioned that you were born in Brooklyn, like myself, and that your parents are Haitian. You know, there's a large Caribbean community here in the United States, but I wanted to ask you not just about your Caribbean roots, but how do you think your Haitian heritage has shaped who you are today?
Well, I think it really kind of made me develop a proudness, always understanding how hard we fought, especially to be the first country in the Caribbean to be independent. And so I always felt like, you know, we're a proud people. I had the ability to speak multiple languages, and so it made me stand up as proud. But being in the U.S., seeing what we're suffering every day, it was a conflicting emotional feeling, but it really gave me the principles and endurance that I needed to succeed.
Those conflicting feelings, what are those around you believe?
Well, because to be a proud people who, you know, we hold tight our history of the revolution that led us to independence, defeating, you know, an empire at one moment, you feel proud. But living in the United States and being constantly subjected to rules that aren't fair, where you see that we're constantly being dehumanized. I remember growing up in New York when they used to use the 3 H's or A's when they talked about AIDS, that they said that Haitian people had AIDS. And so you hear those narratives and never seeing the true narrative of Haitian Americans living in the United States and our successes.
And, you know, the long history of Haitians, right? During the American Revolution. Haitians came as soldiers to fight on the side of the American Revolution for the American trying to overthrow colonialism. And even in the Civil War and New Orleans, there were so many instances where the support of Haiti was just absolutely instrumental and supportive of the American people, and I feel that we should be the same. Now, you talk about the conflicting messages and the disparate treatment, because we are not Haitians are not treated the same, particularly when it comes to immigration, right? In May 22nd, 2021, Homeland Security announced a new temporary protective status, which is a status that's given to a group of people because of maybe some cataclysmic event that's happened in their country. They need refuge, and so we allow for a temporary time period for individuals to come. We know that that was given to Haiti after the earthquakes, but there continues to be ongoing unrest as well as natural disasters that make it difficult for those individuals to go back. There is no work, there are no homes for them to go back to. So Homeland Security extended temporary protective status for another 18 months. What do you believe Congress and the Biden administration should do long term to support those Haitians that are living here in the U.S., as well as that help providing for back home in Haiti?
Well, right now, we really need to address our immigration issue by creating a pathway to citizenship. The extension of TPS is a continuous extension that we've been seeing. And at some point, we just have to say that the extensions that we've given the people who are here, they are working people, they have families, they're contributing to the community and to the country. And so having a clear pathway to citizenship is imperative. But one of the first steps that we really have to acknowledge of what's going on is the constant expulsions of Haitians who are coming, not being given the opportunity. It's a clear violation of due process, and we see it happening every day. So it's important that the administration actually look at the situation and say, let's put in place some permanent solutions.
Sure. I know that the Congressional Black Caucus, the members of the Haiti Caucus, I was having a conversation with another member of the freshman class, Mondaire Jones, about, the administration saying that, well, we're expelling them for health reasons, right, because of the COVID pandemic. Whereas CMS has said, we don't really see it as a health risk in the same way. And rather than putting stopgaps like testing for people that are coming through, the absolute expulsion just seems to be arbitrary and capricious, right?
It is, and I think we have to really have the administration hold this accountability and stop trying to pass the bucket. At the end of the day, if the administration says that they are no longer going to be using Title 42, then we will no longer be using Title 42. And that's just the truth of it. We see that it's being applied to Haitian people on an everyday basis, but not to other immigration groups. If we look at and compare the situations of what's going on in Haiti compared to what's going on throughout the entire other countries, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Haitian people are suffering a similar situation. We had the assassination in Haiti, which caused so much instability. We have an illegitimate prime minister right now in Haiti who's trying to hold elections. We have gangs.
You put a little plug out there, for what you think about the prime minister.
Well, I mean, it's the truth, right? This is not even an objective or this is my thoughts. This is actually true to see where we are right now. And so as we're looking at all the factors that are being compounded that we did not deal with in its inception, this is why we find this overflow of immigrants who are coming to our land borders. We see it in El Paso and our borders in Florida. And we see that as we keep turning a blind eye and exposing, it's not solving the problem. And it becomes our duty to not only hold the president accountable, but Congress must be held accountable because the conversation has been going on for too long. We've written several letters and we're lobbying as members of Congress, but this is the time for action because how is it we support other immigrants, but we're still dealing with the atrocities of what's going on in Haiti, which has been caused because of the United States' relationship with Haiti long term. And we have to admit that also. What was our influence and our impact on policies from decades ago that have put Haiti in this situation?
And what do you think some of those policy changes should be?
I think immediately we have to be prioritizing safety. When we look at what's going on in Haiti, the rise of the gangs, we know who's actually in what political organizations are fueling the gangs. We see that right now. If we hold an election today, it's going to be a race of who feels brave enough to go vote. We can't be in a society where, you know, gangs are terrorizing people so they can't go out and vote. So the U.S. has to take a firm stop and say, listen, you cannot try to rush an election by putting together the CEP to hold elections when you know that it's not going to be fair. It's going to be a risk of your life to go vote. And so only certain groups can get out there. And it's going to be a bloodbath. And that's the reality of Haiti right now. And in addition to that, I think it's a great thing if we look at the Omnibus bill. The money that's going to Haiti, it has contingencies on peace, but we need to really stand strong because Ariel Henry, he places his legitimacy on the United States and the international world. So we can influence and expedite that transition, but what we can do first is prioritize peace.
So you would propose, like so many others have, that we have an interim government right now that is really there to ensure that there's peace and economic stability that occurs, reducing the gang activity so that individuals can campaign and then there can be a legitimate election after a period of time. And I know that you and others have been engaged in civil society, being the individuals that are actually putting a temporary government in place, which will actually, because we know that there were so many positions that have not been filled in the last, 5 years, right? That the previous prime minister did not fill positions with judges, with municipal government. And so there's a vacuum that's happening right now that's being filled with the gangs.
Well, when we look at what's going on with everybody vying to be the next transition government, well, we have to put the expectations on them that we do of all leaders. Leaders are able to unify and get a consensus. That's an important characteristic and variable, but you're also able to have a peaceful transition.
Right.
So as we look at everyone who's proposing accords, we have to look who's able to actually bring the most people together and actually prioritize peace. Because we, in our everyday lives, if we had to elect someone, you're not going to elect someone who can't make sure we have peace, who can't talk, who can't be diplomatic. So I think we have to hold the same standard here and not focus necessarily on who's going to be the next transition government because, you know, they have control, but who can facilitate what's going to be best for everyone, which is a peaceful transition, making sure that gangs are not taking over the streets, and making sure that we actually see real civility coming to light. And that's part of the priority. But I think also what we have to be doing, we have to be cautious as members of Congress, as leaders, that we're not coming in and dictating for the Haitian people what should be going on. So when we talk to the Haitian diaspora, it's important that we ask them, what is your input? What would you like to see? And so I get calls every single day because everyone calls me and they all think that I'm their daughter. They're like, Sheila, do this, do that. But it's a community thing. You understand how the Caribbean family is. And they give me advice. And the number one thing they tell me is that make sure the voice of the people are being heard. So any actions we take, we always sit there and we talk to members of the community. We talk to the Haitian elected officials. We talk to different groups to find out what is the desire. And the one thing we found the desire was for us not to choose a transition government. The number one thing.
To allow the people of Haiti to do that.
Correct.
And I know that there's this also and you tell me if there's a tension between the groups from the diaspora as well as the groups that are there on the ground, that you want to be able to bring both of them together and as many as possible, which is probably a greater representation of all of the people that are going to make the decision.
I think that the tension that exists are really with stakeholders, people who think they want to be part of the accord or want to be actually involved because they have an interest. But if you ask the people what are the desires, people of the diaspora, people in Haiti, they just want peace. They want to go home. They want to visit their family. The reason why it's so important that we include the diaspora in what's going on in Haiti is because the diaspora is the economic engine for Haiti. I say I would love for Haiti to be peaceful because everybody knows how much money I send home. You know, I get calls for every funeral, you know, anything going on. My daughter needs money for school. That's us who's supporting the economy. So I would love for stability to be in the region. I would love for us to have more visas so we can have more work opportunities in the United States and go back and forth. So the diaspora would love to see Haiti prosper. And we have a heart for the country. So we have to start getting people who actually have a heart for the country to start being influential in the process and not other people who are looking at it like, well, this isn't a part of me. Because at the end of the day, whatever happens in Haiti, the reputation that Haiti has, I have that.
You know, and that was one of the reasons that members, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Frederica Wilson, and others really pushed for the temporary protective status to be extended because, you know, Americans need to understand that these people are working.
Right.
These are not people living off of America. They're contributing to the American economy, but they make up also a large portion of the GDP of Haiti as well because of the remittances, because of the money that they're sending back home. You know, when you talk about that, about the economy, what would you like to see the United States in terms of our trade engage with Haiti as well as the Caribbean region also?
Well, I think right now we have a huge shortage of people for employment in a lot of different industries. In my district, we see a huge shortage, especially when it comes to delivering different service trades and service. So we need a lot of people who can even work in hotels, in restaurants. And we see the need and we see the cultural competency, especially for South Florida, where you're servicing Caribbean people. So why not give more visas going into the Caribbean, where we can have them filling in those gaps? And I think that's where we have to encourage our trade and our communication is by using the Caribbean to help support us and we can support them. And we'll see that we have a benefit, the relationship will benefit us both. Even in healthcare, that's a rising issue. We just don't have enough nurses, HHAs, CNAs. These are certificate programs where we know we could bring in people from the Caribbean, teach them those trades, and they can actually help supplement. My background used to be in home health, and that is such a unique area because you're bringing your health professional into your home, and you want someone who looks like you and understands. You know, so your culture, if your culture you don't wear gloves, you want someone who comes in who doesn't wear gloves, or if you guys, you know, it's just a different, such an intimate experience. And so if we can couple those needs with the benefits, we can see the Caribbean grow to a different magnitude, but we can also see the United States prosper. And that's what we're looking for, those beneficial relationships.
So now the Virgin Islands does have a Haitian population. So I was wondering before we close out if there was any special message you wanted to give to them in Creole.
Oh, in Creole. So you're testing my Creole, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So my family's from Okap, so when I speak Creole, my Creole has this it's comparable to a southern kind of twang, but ours is
You're
from...
a really southern girl living in Florida with a southern Creole accent.
Right. So what I would tell everybody is that, you know, you guys have a great congresswoman. Nous gagnons au monde sa représenter nous la Congress du au monde sa toujours parler pour communauté. So nous appreciate you so much for tout ça fait. But in addition, there's times when we feel like we're defeated, seeing constant turmoil. But this is the time for us to align ourselves. So I would tell every Haitian person who's watching and who's thinking, who feels demoralized, when your country's in turmoil for so long, you do. I would tell them that to be encouraged. You know, ça c'est là pour nous venir ensemble, pour nous parler avec qui ça nous veut pour pays avec pour tout le monde comprendre nous, which is this is the time we come together so everybody can understand who we are and what we want for the country. And so I thank you so much for having me here today, because having the conversation with our community partners, the Caribbean population, it's so imperative that we support each other because we're stronger together. We have similar cultures. We support each other. Centuries ago, we went from island to island working, and that's been our experience. So when we stand up for one, we stand up for all. So I appreciate you to give me this moment and this platform. Thank you.
You know, as I've said, if you need anything from me, as you know, and you've come in such a difficult time as a freshman in a special election, there wasn't any orientation for you. We just threw you in there. So whenever you need to reach out, know that myself, my office, my team, you've got the best with your chief of staff, Mike McQuarrie, who used to be part of our team. We are one. And any way I can help, I'm there for you. So finally, in closing, this year we're going to continue the tradition of ending the Washington Report with some words from me. As you heard, we were just discussing immigration and the issues of Haiti. With the current border crisis and continued neglect of Haiti, myself and my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus are committed to changing the United States immigration policy towards Haitians to a policy that is humane, equitable, based on common sense, and ultimately fair. There's a long-standing conversation and controversy over the treatment of Haitian asylum applicants who are routinely detained indefinitely pending a credible fear determination by the Department of Homeland Security, as compared to the treatment of Cuban asylum applicants who are automatically assumed to be fleeing because of political persecution when they set foot on American soil. Cuban asylum seekers also are eligible, barring some exception, to apply for legal residency a year later. We need to work for Haitian parity to obtain the same benefits for Haitians that currently are available to Cubans. The Haitian Family Reunification Program was established to allow certain eligible U.S. citizens and LPRs to apply for parole for their family members in Haiti. This past September, the world watched as large numbers of Haitians entered the United States at the Texas border at Del Rio and bore witness to disturbing images and videos of Border Patrol agents on horses chasing and in some instances whipping Black migrants carrying nothing but food and water. While particularly horrifying, these incidents are not an aberration. Black migrants face disparate and often inhumane treatment at every stage of immigration enforcement process. Although Black immigrants comprise just 5.4% of the unauthorized population in the United States and 7.2% of the total non-citizen population, they were 10.6% of all immigrants in removal proceedings between 2003 and 2015. Similarly, a recent report from researchers at the University of California found that those detained from Africa and the Caribbean, predominantly Black regions, make up just 4% of those in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody from 2012 to 2017, but 24% of all solitary confinement detentions. Black migrants are also likely to remain in detention longer than any migrants and pay significantly higher bonds for release. It's essential that we recommit ourselves to reversing anti-Black policies, including by adopting a human rights-centered approach to supporting immigrants and people seeking asylum in the United States. Now, another issue that I wanted to talk with you about that is going on this week that I'm really excited about, and I know, Sheila, you are as well, is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, H.R. 2116, the Crown Act, which is creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. You and I both have daughters. Mm-hmm. We've both been little Black girls as well, so we know the issues that this represents, and this bill prohibits discrimination based on a person's hair texture or hairstyle, if that style or texture is commonly associated with a particular race or national origin. Specifically, the bill prohibits this type of discrimination against those participating in federal assistance program, housing programs, public accommodations, and employment. As a Black woman, the passing of the Crown Act is important to me. Hair discrimination can start as early as 5 years old, and 86% of Black teens who experience hair discrimination stated that they experienced it by the age of 12. Trauma means teenage girls are missing a week of school per year due to their hair dissatisfaction. I can recall as a small girl after school telling my mother about a man who had joked about my perfectly coiffed, perfectly round afro. In the 70s, that was important. And my mother's lioness reaction gave me the strength to endure microaggressions I received when I wore my hair later as an adult in locks, cornrows, and braids. Studies have shown that 80% of Black women believe that they had to change their hair from its natural state to fit in at the office. This is unacceptable. Black women are 50% more likely to be sent home from work because of their hair. Discrimination against Black women and girls because of their natural hair is far too common in our workplace and most discouraging in schools. Black women and girls deserve the freedom to be who God made them to be, from the tips of their toes to every twist, wave, and coil of their beautiful hair. Your hair is a form of self-expression, and Black women and girls have the right to express themselves in any way they choose, anyhow they want with their hair. It's time to put an end to hair discrimination. So I want to thank you all for being a part of the Washington Report, and thank you to my new sister from Florida for being a part of this esteemed body, the U.S. House of Representatives and the Congress, the People's House. and the incredible work that I know you and your team are about to embark on. And remember, Florida is just the near cousin to the Virgin Islands, so come on down to St. Croix, St. John, or St. Thomas at any time, and you'll receive a warm Caribbean welcome from us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So that's all for us here, and I want to thank you guys. Peace and love, and everyone stay safe and stay VI strong.